You forgot your coffee. I didn't look up when I said it. I was standing at the sink, holding the mug like I didn't know what it was for. The steam still curled a little, but the top had already gone cold. He paused at the door, briefcase in hand. Thanks, hun. Hun. He hadn't called me that in years. Then the door clicked shut behind him. I didn't move right away, just stood there, watching the sunlight stretch halfway across the counter. The blinds carved it into stripes, sharp, clean, and quiet. Then I walked to his office. He never locked it, not anymore. The printer was still warm, one page in the tray. I picked it up. A trust transfer form. My name wasn't on it, again. Upstairs, the bedroom clock ticked like it was counting something down. I thought of all the times he told me I was losing things, forgetting details, misremembering. I traced my finger across the line where my name should have been. And that's when I knew. He wasn't planning to leave. He was planning to leave me behind. The first thing I felt wasn't fear. It wasn't anger either. It was silence, like someone had turned off a switch inside me. Everything dimmed, muted, but not empty. I held the trust transfer form like it might still change if I stared long enough. My name, gone. The house, the accounts, the land in Vermont, all transferred, all finalized, without a single word spoken aloud. He had done it, while still smiling at me across the dinner table, while handing me a cup of coffee in the mornings, while leaning in, brushing my cheek with his lips before heading out the door. I sat on the edge of our bed, the paper trembling just slightly between my fingers, not from shock, from recognition. Because the truth is, I think I already knew. Not the details, no, not the paperwork, not the accounts, but I knew something had been shifting for a long time. It started subtly, the passwords I suddenly didn't know, the account logins he reset for security, the times he said the mortgage was paid but never let me see the statement, the insurance policies he was handling now. It was so quiet the way he took it all, and I let him, because I believed him when he said I was bad with numbers, that it stressed me out too much, that he just wanted to simplify things so I could focus on healing. He used the word healing like it was a spell. He said it after my surgery, after I lost my job, after I started waking up at 3 a.m., heart racing, palms sweating, with no reason I could name. You need rest, he'd say. Let me take care of the rest. And I wanted to believe him. Because the truth is, I wanted someone to save me. I wanted to believe someone could. But now I was holding the truth in my hands, and it had no warmth, no softness, no room for second chances. I placed the form beneath the mattress, not hidden, not destroyed, just kept. I needed to see what else he was willing to pretend I wouldn't notice. That night, he brought home Chinese takeout, my favorite, even remembered the extra ginger sauce. "You okay?" he asked, noticing how I barely touched my food. "Just tired," I said. He nodded, didn't ask more. He didn't want the real answer. Later in bed, he reached for me, not like a husband, like someone performing a ritual they no longer believed in. I turned slightly, let him think it was enough. After he fell asleep, I stared at the ceiling and counted backward from 1,000. It's something my therapist once told me to do when I couldn't calm my mind. It didn't work. In the morning, I went through the medicine cabinet, not for pills, for receipts, old prescription invoices, insurance documents, anything. There were gaps, whole months missing. I opened the laptop. His account was still logged in. I didn't panic. I searched his files, his downloads, his email, and there it was, 3 folders. "You forgot your coffee." I didn't look up when I said it. I was standing at the sink, holding the mug like I didn't know what it was for. The steam still curled a little, but the top had already gone cold. He paused at the door, briefcase in hand. "Thanks, hun." Hun. He hadn't called me that in years. Then the door clicked shut behind him. I didn't move right away, just stood there, watching the sunlight stretch halfway across the counter. The blinds carved it into stripes, sharp, clean, and quiet. Then I walked to his office. He never locked it, not anymore. The printer was still warm, 1 page in the tray. I picked it up. A trust transfer form. My name wasn't on it, again. Upstairs, the bedroom clock ticked like it was counting something down. I thought of all the times he told me I was losing things, forgetting details, misremembering. I traced my finger across the line where my name should have been. And that's when I knew. He wasn't planning to leave. He was planning to leave me behind. The first thing I felt wasn't fear. It wasn't anger either. It was silence, like someone had turned off a switch inside me. Everything dimmed, muted, but not empty. I held the trust transfer form like it might still change if I stared long enough. My name, gone. The house, the accounts, the land in Vermont, all transferred, all finalized, without a single word spoken aloud. He had done it, while still smiling at me across the dinner table, while handing me a cup of coffee in the mornings, while leaning in, brushing my cheek with his lips before heading out the door. I sat on the edge of our bed, the paper trembling just slightly between my fingers, not from shock, from recognition. Because the truth is, I think I already knew. Not the details, no, not the paperwork, not the accounts, but I knew something had been shifting for a long time. It started subtly, the passwords I suddenly didn't know, the account logins he reset for security, the times he said the mortgage was paid but never let me see the statement, the insurance policies he was handling now. It was so quiet the way he took it all, and I let him, because I believed him when he said I was bad with numbers, that it stressed me out too much, that he just wanted to simplify things so I could focus on healing. He used the word healing like it was a spell. He said it after my surgery, after I lost my job, after I started waking up at 3 a.m., heart racing, palms sweating, with no reason I could name. "You need rest," he'd say. "Let me take care of the rest." And I wanted to believe him. Because the truth is, I wanted someone to save me. I wanted to believe someone could. But now I was holding the truth in my hands, and it had no warmth, no softness, no room for second chances. I placed the form beneath the mattress, not hidden, not destroyed, just kept. I needed to see what else he was willing to pretend I wouldn't notice. That night, he brought home Chinese takeout, my favorite, even remembered the extra ginger sauce. "You okay?" he asked, noticing how I barely touched my food. "Just tired," I said. He nodded, didn't ask more. He didn't want the real answer. Later in bed, he reached for me, not like a husband, like someone performing a ritual they no longer believed in. I turned slightly, let him think it was enough. After he fell asleep, I stared at the ceiling and counted backward from 1,000. It's something my therapist once told me to do when I couldn't calm my mind. It didn't work. In the morning, I went through the medicine cabinet, not for pills, for receipts, old prescription invoices, insurance documents, anything. There were gaps, whole months missing. I opened the laptop. His account was still logged in. I didn't panic. I searched his files, his downloads, his email, and there it was, 3 folders. One labeled Transfers, Final. Another, Living Trust, Redraft. And the third, Exit. That one was empty. I stared at it for a long time. That afternoon, I sat on the porch and watched the wind move through the branches of the elm tree he planted when we first bought the house. He used to say it would outlive both of us. I wasn't so sure anymore. When he came home, he smiled like nothing had changed, kissed my cheek, asked if I wanted to go out for dinner this weekend. I said, sure, because now I needed time. Not to fix us, to prepare. The next few days passed like glass, clear, fragile, sharp around the edges. I moved through them carefully. I didn't tell my sister, I didn't tell Lauren from work, I didn't even tell Diane, my old friend who'd gone through something similar 2 years ago. She would have known what to do, but I wasn't ready to say it out loud. If I said it, it would become real. I wasn't there yet. Instead, I watched. I noticed how he always took his phone into the bathroom now, how he flinched when I asked him what time he'd be home, how he smiled just a second too late, like he had to remember which face to wear. I checked the drawer where we used to keep on passports. Only his was there. I opened the safe. Empty. No jewelry, no birth certificates, nothing. And still, I didn't say a word, because this wasn't a confrontation. This was an awakening. And the truth was finally louder than the silence he kept wrapping around me. One morning, he left his tablet on the kitchen counter, unlocked. I saw an email thread with someone named E. Grant. Not a woman, I don't think. A financial advisor, maybe. Hard to say. But the wording was clear. Finalize the shift on Monday. Then we'll review the offshore account. My hands shook, but not from fear, from clarity. Everything he said about simplifying, about helping, about taking pressure off my plate. It was never about my peace. It was always about control. He had slowly, methodically taken everything that tied us together and rerouted it to himself. My name removed from accounts, policies, deeds, tax forms. One by one, cut from the story like I'd never existed. Like I was a burden he had to quietly unload. That night, I made spaghetti, his favorite. We ate while watching the news. He didn't notice how still I was, how quiet. He liked me quiet. It made his world easier. But inside, something was growing. Not rage, not even sadness anymore. Resolve. And that scared me more than anything. Because I'd spent years trying to be soft, forgiving, understanding. Now, I was becoming something else. Something I hadn't been in a long time. Myself. I lay awake that night, staring at the crack in the ceiling. I remembered how he used to trace circles on my back while I fell asleep. I remembered the first time he said, You don't need to worry about that. And how good it felt to believe him. But he wasn't protecting me. He was preparing to disappear me. I didn't cry. There wasn't room for tears. Just a quiet, deep knowing. This wasn't a mistake. This was a plan. And it was already in motion. He booked the trip without asking. Thought it'd be good for us, he said, placing the printed confirmation on the counter like a peace offering. Just 3 days, no phones, no noise, just us. I looked down at the paper. Lake House, the one his parents left him. 2 hours away, isolated, cold this time of year. He hadn't brought it up in years. I didn't answer right away. I just folded the paper in half, set it beside the sink, and nodded once. He took that as a yes. That night, he brought home my favorite dessert, lit candles, even played that jazz playlist we used to dance to back when we were still learning each other's rhythms. I miss this, he said softly, brushing my hand. I looked at him, really looked. His eyes didn't hold anything sharp, no defensiveness, no distance. And for a split second, I almost believed it. The next morning, I packed a small bag, sweaters, books, my old journal, a scarf my mother knit before she died. I hadn't touched it in years, but something about bringing it felt necessary. When we arrived, the lake house looked smaller than I remembered. The siding was cracked in places, the porch warped from years of snow, but the inside smelled the same: cedar wood, old dust, and something faintly sweet from the kitchen. He lit a fire, unpacked the wine, put on music. He was trying. I could feel it in the way he moved. I want to get back to us, he said that night, curled up beside me under the throw blanket. You've been distant. I know I haven't made it easy, but I want to fix this. My throat tightened, because the words were right, but something in the way he said them felt rehearsed. Still, I nodded. I didn't have the energy to argue, and part of me, the part still clinging to the girl who believed love could conquer anything, wanted it to be real. We stayed up late that first night, talked about memories, the trip to Santa Fe where we got caught in the rain, the dog we almost adopted, the baby we almost had. We didn't say it directly, but I felt it between us. The ache, the failure, the loss. He touched my hand when we talked about the miscarriage, for the first time in years, and I let him. The next morning, he made coffee and brought it to me on the porch. You still take it black with cinnamon, right? I smiled. You remembered. Of course I did. We sat in silence, the lake completely still, not even a ripple, just glass. He pulled a blanket tighter around my shoulders and kissed my temple. I leaned into him without thinking. Something about the quiet, the ritual, the softness, it felt like hope. But when I went inside to rinse my cup, I saw his phone light up on the counter. One message, preview only. Emily, confirmed for Friday. Keep everything under initials. Will explain. I didn't touch it, didn't scroll, didn't need to. My stomach sank, not from surprise, but from confirmation. The softness wasn't the truth, it was a tool. I walked back onto the porch, slower this time, the blanket tighter around me, my smile quieter. He didn't notice. He was staring out at the water, eyes glassy, like a man convincing himself he was still the hero of his own story. That night, he made pasta, he poured wine, we watched the fire crackle, and said nothing for a long time. At one point, he took my hand. I know I've made mistakes, he said, but I'm trying to do right by you now. You see that, right? I met his eyes. They were wet, but not desperate, measured. "I see something," I said. He laughed softly, like I was being playful, but I wasn't. That night, I couldn't sleep. His breathing beside me was steady, almost too steady, like he wanted me to hear it, like the sound itself was a performance. I slipped out of bed, walked barefoot to the living room, and sat in front of the fire. I didn't cry. I just stared at the embers, trying to understand how I'd gotten here. I had spent so many years explaining away what didn't feel right, so many hours folding myself into someone else's narrative, so many months choosing peace over truth. And here I was, watching the man who once held my hand in hospital rooms now hide offshore documents behind initials and soft kisses. When he woke the next morning, he wrapped his arms around my waist while I poured coffee. "You slept well?" "Not really." He kissed my shoulder. "You will tonight." We drove home in silence. He played the same playlist, held my hand at red lights, smiled when I looked over. It was all so gentle, so curated. The day after, he offered to help clean the garage, found an old photo album, suggested we go through it together. He was doubling down. I smiled, played the part, because now I knew what game we were playing, and I knew he thought I was still on the losing side. But what he didn't see, what he never bothered to notice, was that I had already started building the exit he thought I'd never dare take. And I was nearly ready. For a few weeks, things felt easy. Not warm, not safe, but easy. We fell into a rhythm. Coffee in the mornings, light conversation, him bringing groceries without me asking, me making dinner most nights, like I always had. We stopped touching as much, but when we did, it was gentle, strategic. We weren't fighting. We weren't loving either. We were pretending. And honestly, it was a relief. No pressure to fix things, no blow-ups, no late night sobbing. Just a quiet, watchful kind of peace. Like living with a stranger who knew your favorite kind of tea. He stopped locking his phone again. At first, I thought it meant something, that maybe he was being open. But then I noticed he had added a second device, a tablet, always with him, always off if I was near. And when I touched it once, just moved it from the couch to the charger, he came into the room in seconds. "Need something?" "No," I said, "just cleaning up." He smiled, but I saw the way his eyes flicked to the screen, fast, measured. I started watching him in new ways, like a scientist, small things. The way he turned his shoulder when checking texts, the way he never mentioned his meetings by name anymore. Everything became vague. We talked numbers today. I had a call with a colleague, just running errands. It would have been normal if I hadn't seen the file labeled exit. If I hadn't noticed that the electric bill had quietly been shifted to his name only, that his new credit card didn't include me, that when I tried to schedule an appointment with our old accountant, I was told politely that I was no longer on the active list. I didn't push back. I simply said, "Ah, got it." I smiled, and I wrote it down. Every night, I updated my file. I called it the quiet list, just a Word doc, hidden behind photos in a decoy folder. It included everything he was doing, what accounts had changed, who called, what paper arrived in the mail addressed only to him, what hours he disappeared for work. But I didn't confront. I didn't accuse. Instead, I became still. He liked it. He mistook my quiet for peace. He started sleeping better, whistling again in the mornings, making plans, talking about a future, trips, renovations, holidays with his brother. He used the word "we" a lot, but I knew what it meant. It meant, you don't see it yet. I stopped wearing makeup, stopped brushing my hair some days. He never commented. I wanted to see if he'd notice me fading, if he'd notice me pulling back into myself. He didn't. He was too focused on the finish line he thought I'd never reach. One night, I woke at 2:14 a.m. from a dream I don't remember. He wasn't in bed. I walked downstairs. There he was, in the kitchen, lights off, sitting with his tablet in the glow of the refrigerator. He didn't hear me. He was whispering. "I know, I said I would. She's just not paying attention anymore." Pause. "No, I've got the rest ready. She'll sign, I'll make sure." Another pause. Then a laugh, low, familiar, like the one he used when talking to clients, back when he still brought me along to networking dinners. I stepped back before the floor creaked, slipped upstairs, back into bed, pretending to be asleep when he returned. His side of the mattress dipped gently, then nothing. The next morning, he acted like he always did, smiled, poured coffee, asked how I slept. "Fine," I said, and he nodded. I started taking walks, long ones, no destination, just movement. Some days, I passed houses with front gardens, saw women my age planting things, pulling weeds, talking to cats on porches. I used to be that woman. I remembered the day I bought my first trowel. I remembered the color of my hands in spring. I started carrying a notebook, not a journal, just a place to write what I noticed. One entry read, "Tuesday, 3:12 p.m., phone call ends when I walk in. Eyes shift left, voice raised half pitch after." Another, "Friday, 9:41 a.m., email from Grant & Co. marked urgent, deleted before I saw contents." I wasn't gathering evidence for court. I was gathering myself. One night, he sat beside me on the couch and put his hand on my thigh. He hadn't done that in weeks. "Wanna watch something?" he asked. "Sure," I said. "You pick." We watched a thriller about a woman who finds out her husband isn't who he says he is. He fell asleep halfway through. I didn't. I watched the whole thing, every minute. The woman didn't scream, didn't run, didn't burn things down. She planned, and she won. When the credits rolled, I looked at his sleeping face. I thought, for a moment, about how young he used to look when he slept, how I used to love the curve of his mouth, the way his brow relaxed. Now it all looked unfamiliar, like watching someone you once knew across a crowded room, older now, slightly different, like a memory wearing someone else's clothes. That night, I emailed Diane, just one sentence. If I were thinking about leaving quietly, what would I need to know first? She responded the next morning. "Don't ask questions you don't already know the answers to. Start copies, stay calm, say nothing, and don't leave until the exit is yours." I read it 3 times, then deleted it. The wind picked up that afternoon. Storm clouds rolled in fast. He texted, "Be home late, dinner with Emily, re-tax stuff. Don't wait up." Emily. So she had a name now, a role, a reason. I stared at the message, then locked my phone. I made dinner anyway, ate alone, and when I washed the dishes, I whispered quietly to no one, "I see you." It happened on a Thursday. I wasn't snooping, I wasn't searching, I was folding towels. The linen closet shelf stuck, like it always did. I tugged harder, and the whole stack shifted. Something fell. A folder. Not thick, not new, no label. I opened it without meaning to. Inside, 2 printed emails, 1 receipt, 1 printed copy of a signed document. The emails were between him and someone named Grant. I recognized the name from his tablet. The tone was casual, but precise, businesslike. Final push. Get her to sign the refi under pressure. Don't give her time to review. That line stopped me cold. Under pressure. There was more. A line about clean exit language and how her mental history gives us room if it goes to court. Her. Not my wife, not my partner. Just her. The receipt was for a wire transfer. Large, untraceable destination. And the document? A refinance agreement, with my name forged. The signature wasn't mine. The slant was too sharp. The tail on the Y didn't loop. I've written my name thousands of times. I'd know it in the dark. And now I knew. I stood in the hallway with that folder in my hands and the towels still warm on the floor. My mouth was dry. Not from fear, from truth. This wasn't suspicion anymore. This was fact. And somehow, I wasn't surprised. That night, he brought home flowers. Bright ones, loud, the kind I used to say looked too supermarket. I said nothing. I let him put them in the vase, watched him fuss with the angle, like it mattered. "I thought you could use a pick-me-up," he said. I smiled. That's thoughtful. He kissed my cheek. I didn't flinch. Later, he asked if I'd looked at the refinance papers again. "The bank just needs your signature," he said. "We can go over them if you want." I looked at him for a long time. I thought about how easy it was for him to lie. "I'll take a look tomorrow," I said. He nodded, too fast, then changed the subject. I started listening differently after that. I paid attention to his pauses, his careful phrasing, his avoidance of timelines, of specific numbers. He spoke in fog. I started clearing it. One morning, I called the notary listed on the forged refi document, pretending to be confirming an appointment. "I already processed that form," the woman said. "Both parties signed in my presence." "I'm sorry," I said, very calm. "Can you remind me when that was?" She hesitated. 2 weeks ago, in person, at your address." "I don't think I was home that day." "Oh." A beat, then her voice softened. "Ma'am, are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said, and I hung up. It felt like a bell ringing in my chest. Not panic, not alarm, just the sound of final clarity. I was not mistaken. I was not imagining. I was not paranoid. I was being erased by someone who loved me quietly and lied louder. That night, he made risotto. He never made risotto. Too much stirring. I watched his hands move around the kitchen, confident, charming, measured. He handed me a glass of wine, sat across from me, told me he'd been thinking we should start fresh, sell the house, maybe move somewhere quieter, somewhere better for your anxiety. That's how he said it, gently, like he was helping, like this was still a team. I wanted to laugh or scream or throw the wine in his face. Instead, I nodded. Maybe you're right. I watched his shoulders drop just slightly, like he believed me. He wanted to believe I was still asleep. I started spending more time in the guest room. Said it was for my back. The mattress is firmer. He didn't question it. He was glad I wasn't asking about the refinance again. He was glad I was tired and distracted. He was glad I wasn't calling the bank. but I was. I called from my friend's phone, gave with file number, asked for confirmation of the refinance. They told me it was closed. Done. Signed and processed by both parties, the rep said. Everything looks complete. I didn't argue, just wrote it down. I started printing everything, made copies, stored them in a manila envelope at the bottom of the laundry basket under the fitted sheets he never folded right. And I started watching his rhythm, when he left, what he touched, what he didn't touch. He never checked the mailbox anymore, that was mine. So I changed the mailing address on one of the credit cards to Diane's, just to see what came in. And what came was a bill for a hotel reservation, 2 nights, downtown. Same nights he said he was out of town for a conference. The reservation had 2 names, his and Emily's. There it was, the confirmation of what my body had already known, of what the late-night whispers had already hinted at, of what the flowers and risotto and jazz playlists had tried to bury. He wasn't just trying to leave me. He was trying to leave me without anything. And he wanted to do it quietly, kindly, like it was all inevitable, like it was best for both of us. But I knew better now. I saw the fracture line, and it wasn't new. It had been running through us for years, small, hairline, growing. He stopped asking me about my writing. I stopped showing him my poems. He stopped noticing when I got new glasses. I stopped wearing perfume. He started making more suggestions. I started apologizing for things I hadn't done. It wasn't one moment. It was 1,000 tiny ones. And now I saw all of them, clearly. That night, after he fell asleep, I walked into the guest room and closed the door. I lay in the dark and whispered out loud, like a prayer, "He's already gone." And the silence that followed was peaceful, because now I had nothing left to question, only things to do. It was a Tuesday, the kind of day people forget, overcast, quiet, the sky a dull sheet of gray that never quite decided whether to rain or not. He left early, said he had a meeting. I made coffee, sat in the kitchen, just me, the clock, and the sound of the heater turning on in soft bursts. Something told me to check the printer. Not his tablet, not his desk, the printer. It wasn't even running. No lights, no paper sticking out. But when I opened the tray, I found 5 pages tucked underneath the feeder, curled slightly from heat. Pages he'd printed, then hidden, or forgotten. The first was a list, a timeline. Full transfer, December, house, account, insurance. No contest if unaware. Final shift, March. Next to it, Emily files, confirmed. There was more. Copies of bank activity, a draft of a letter to his lawyer, a cover page for a dissolution of marriage agreement, unsigned but fully written. He wasn't just leaving. He wasn't just lying. He was preparing to file without my knowledge, and he was nearly done. I stood there holding the pages and didn't blink. I didn't cry. I just felt still, like my body had already known, like I was just now catching up. The papers didn't feel real in my hand. They felt like something out of a script, a bad play where you can see the twist coming, but you sit through it anyway. He had a whole plan, a timeline, and I wasn't in it. Only my absence was. I placed the pages on the counter, took a photo of each one. Then I poured myself another cup of coffee. There was nothing left to guess. When he came home that night, he smiled, told me the meeting went long, kissed my forehead. I nodded, asked how traffic was. We had tacos for dinner. He made a joke about cilantro. I laughed at the right time. Then he leaned back and said, "You've seemed lighter lately." I smiled. I think I'm starting to see things clearly. He looked pleased with himself. He had no idea what I meant. That night, while he showered, I opened his briefcase. I'd never done that before. It was full of files, receipts, a flash drive. I didn't take anything. I didn't need to. I just needed to see it, to prove to myself it was all there. He wasn't even hiding it well anymore, because he thought I was gone already, thought he'd won. I put everything back exactly the way it was. I didn't need to sabotage him. I needed to outlast him. The next morning, he mentioned a quick weekend trip he had to take, alone. "Just business," he said. "I'll be back Sunday." "Want me to come?" I asked, just to see. He hesitated, smiled like it was cute. "You'd hate it, boring." I nodded. "You're probably right." He kissed me before he left, told me he loved me. And it didn't sting. It felt like static, like someone else's voice inside an old radio. I watched his car disappear down the driveway. Then I packed a bag. Not to run, to collect. I drove to Diane's. She opened the door and pulled me in without asking. I handed her the flash drive I'd made copies onto. She plugged it in. Her face changed as she clicked through the folders. "You were right," she whispered. I nodded. She looked at me. "You okay?" "No," I said, "but I'm awake." She showed me what I didn't know. Accounts in his name only, offshore movement, a shell company in Nevada. He'd been planning this for over a year. The timing, the signatures, the separation of assets, everything designed to make it look like I'd agreed, or worse, that I didn't care. He was trying to ghost me legally, to dissolve the life we'd built while keeping the appearance that it was mutual. "That signature on the refinance," Diane said, "it's provable forgery, if we move fast." I stared at the screen. "He really thought I wouldn't see it," I said. "He's counting on you being quiet." I looked at her. "Then let's be quiet, but not still." We spent the rest of the afternoon printing, copying, backing up files. She called a friend, a lawyer who specialized in silent proceedings. "He won't see it coming," Diane said. I didn't smile. This wasn't revenge. This was survival. When I got home that night, the house was dark, still, cold. He was gone already, bags packed, left earlier than he said. I walked into the living room, sat on the couch, and for the first time in months, I felt free. Not safe, not okay, not healed, but awake, present, alive, in my own skin again. I went to bed early, woke at sunrise, made coffee, and watched the light shift across the floor. Not waiting for him to come back, just waiting for the next step. I didn't say a word when he came home. He walked through the door on Sunday night, exactly when he said he would. Suitcase in one hand, phone in the other. His smile was relaxed, rehearsed, confident. "Trip was good," he said. "Productive." I nodded from the kitchen, stirred the soup I was making. Nothing fancy, just enough for two. I served his bowl first. He didn't notice the silence, didn't notice the way my eyes didn't follow him when he walked past me, didn't notice how I didn't ask a single question about his trip. No, where did you stay? No, who was there? No, how was the hotel food? Because I already knew. I already had the photos of the suite with 2 glasses by the bedside. Already had the printed hotel folio from the front desk that listed E. Grant under the reservation. Already had the GPS record of his car. I didn't need him to tell me the truth. I just needed him to keep lying. He talked over dinner, mostly about himself. New contracts, plans for the house, a few jokes thrown in, like he was testing the air between us. I smiled when appropriate, laughed once. He relaxed. He thought I was over it, whatever it was. I cleared the dishes, rinsed them, and wiped the counter down like always. Later, he reached for me in bed. Light touch, familiar pattern. I turned into him, kissed him once, then rolled away. He took that as enough. And I lay there, watching the numbers on the alarm clock change. The next morning, I wore lipstick. He noticed. "You look nice." I smiled, just felt like it. He poured coffee. Didn't ask where I was going. So I didn't tell him, because I wasn't going to the store. I was going to the bank. I sat across from the branch manager, Diane's lawyer, on speakerphone, and slid the file across the desk. She opened it, slowly, page after page. Refi documents with forged signatures. Withdrawals I hadn't authorized. My name removed from the deed. She looked up. "We'll get started immediately." I nodded, quietly. Back home, he was on a Zoom call, door closed, face animated. I stood outside the office for a moment, listening. Not to the words, just to the tone. Assured, smooth, confident. The same voice he used on me for years. I walked away before he noticed. That week, I moved methodically. I visited our accountant, presented everything. I filed a formal complaint with the state about the notary who witnessed my forged signature. I set up a new bank account in my name only. I redirected all mail to a P.O. box he didn't know about. I made copies of the house key, hid one with Diane. I pulled our wedding license out of the fire safe and made 3 duplicates. I didn't look at the date on it, didn't look at our signatures. I wasn't interested in memories. Only proof, only facts. He started getting bolder, talking about selling the house again. "Market's peaking," he said. "We should take advantage." I nodded. "Maybe." He smiled. "We'll call the realtor this week." "Sure," I said. He went to bed early that night. I stayed up and reread the email between him and his lawyer. Push her to sign by end of March. Frame it as protection, not division. That was his strategy. Make it look like I was doing him a favor. Make it look like I agreed. I started recording everything, not secretly, openly. Voice memos while I cooked, while I walked, while I thought out loud. Just in case. I emailed them to myself, titled each one, "Quiet Log plus Date." One afternoon, I sat on the back porch and said softly, "I am not confused. I am not crazy. I am watching. I am preparing. I am not afraid." I sent that one too. He started bringing me little gifts again. A scarf, a candle, a necklace I would have liked 5 years ago. He was trying to buy a version of me he'd already abandoned. I accepted each gift with a thank you, then logged the date. March was getting closer. I met with the lawyer twice a week. We were building a net he wouldn't see until it closed. Quietly. Legally. Thoroughly. He asked me once if I'd spoken to my sister. I said no. She knew everything. She was holding copies of the paperwork in a safety deposit box I opened under her name. She offered to come stay with me. I told her not yet. Not until I was ready to make it known. The lawyer called the plan controlled containment. I called it coming home to myself. I cooked meals, I folded laundry, I smiled in passing. But inside, I was collecting every inch of the story, and every inch was mine. He didn't notice the calendar on my desk had dates circled, the court filing date, the asset freeze request, the motion for emergency injunction if he tried to sell the house. He didn't see the quiet fire because I didn't show it, because he didn't expect it from me. He thought the soft woman he met at 32, the one who cried during storms and asked for help reading tax forms, was still in there, hoping he'd come back. He was wrong. She had buried herself to survive, but now she was rising, different, focused, clear-eyed, not angry, not screaming, just ready. The night before the filing, we had dinner, lasagna. He poured wine, made a joke, brushed my hand as he passed me a napkin. "Tomorrow's gonna be busy," he said. "We should go over those forms." "What forms?" "The real estate stuff, just some signatures." I tilted my head. "Oh, right." He smiled. "You trust me, don't you?" I smiled back. "Of course." I slept in the guest room, dreamless. At 7:12 a.m., I filed. Court received, lawyer confirmed, freeze initiated, case opened. By 9:04, his accounts were flagged. By 9:37, a courier served the injunction. And by 10 o'clock, my phone buzzed with the first text from him. "What the hell is this?" I didn't answer, because I didn't owe him words anymore. I owed myself the truth, and I was already living it. His first mistake was assuming I would ask for permission. His second was thinking I would warn him. I didn't. I filed at 7:12 a.m. By the time he realized it, I was already sipping tea on the front porch, watching the mail truck roll down the street. At 9:17 a.m., his phone call came in. I didn't answer. At 9:21, a second one. At 9:24, a text. What's going on? Why is my account locked? I watched the screen light up, then dim again. I didn't touch it. Instead, I went inside, pulled the envelope from the drawer, and placed it on the kitchen table. Inside were copies of the filings, the freeze orders, and the formal complaint of forgery with his signature beside mine. Let him see it first. Let him read it in black and white. At 9:43, I heard the car in the driveway. He didn't slam the door, didn't run inside. He came in quiet, like a man still pretending he had time. He found me in the kitchen. "What is this?" he said, holding up the envelope. "Is this a joke?" I said nothing. He flipped through the pages, eyes scanning faster now. "You're filing against me? Freezing assets? Are you serious?" Still, I said nothing. He dropped the papers on the table. "You could have talked to me. You didn't have to blindside me like this." I looked up. "I didn't blindside you. I protected myself." He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "You forged my signature," I said. His face changed, just slightly, a twitch in the corner of his mouth. What are you even talking about?" "The refinance, the notary confirmed, the date, the signature. I wasn't home. I never signed." That's a misunderstanding." "No, it's a felony." He stepped back, like the word had weight. "You think you're going to win this way?" he asked, voice tightening. "You think this makes you the victim?" I didn't answer. He was used to me explaining. He was used to me folding. I did neither. "I took care of everything," he snapped. "You didn't have to worry about anything. You're going to throw away all of that because you feel hurt?" I tilted my head slightly. "You stole from me. I built this life. You tried to erase me from it." Silence. He ran a hand through his hair, paced. "I should have expected this," he muttered. "Diane's behind this, isn't she? She always hated me." I let him talk, let him spiral, let him hear his own words out loud. He tried a softer tone, stepped closer. "Look, we can fix this, okay? I'll talk to the lawyer. We'll redo the forms. We'll put things back how they were." I smiled. Just slightly. I don't want it back. His mouth opened again, but nothing came out. He looked confused. Not scared yet, just unprepared. You don't get to choose the version of me you want to deal with, I said quietly. Not anymore. He blinked. I walked past him, picked up my purse, my keys. He followed me to the door. You're making a mistake. I turned slowly. No, you did, and I documented every single one. Then I walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't look back. I drove straight to the lawyer's office, signed the next round of filings. We initiated a forensic audit of the accounts. I signed the affidavit confirming the forgery. He wouldn't be able to touch another dime without explaining it in court. That afternoon, he called again, left a voicemail. His voice was steady.
I don't know what you're trying to prove, but this isn't the way. You're blowing everything up. For what? Some fantasy of control?
Fantasy of control. I listened twice, then deleted it. At 6:12 p.m., he emailed me. Subject, let's talk. Body, I think we can still salvage this. If we both agree not to escalate, we can keep things clean. No need to drag this out. I didn't reply. I sent it to my lawyer. She called it a soft threat. She said it meant we were hitting the right nerve. That night, I lit a candle in the guest room and wrote in my notebook for the first time in months. Not just lists, not dates or facts or legal steps. Real writing, the kind I used to do before all of this. I wrote, "He thought he was the fire, but I've lived through fire. He doesn't know I've turned to stone and back again. He doesn't know who he left behind in the process of trying to disappear me. But he will. One motion at a time. One truth at a time. And I won't raise my voice once." The courthouse smelled like old air and disinfectant. It wasn't grand. No towering pillars, no stained glass. Just tan walls, worn benches, and the sound of people trying to stay calm. I wore navy. Not black, not mourning, not red, not revenge. Navy. Steady, unmoving, like the ocean. My lawyer sat beside me, flipping calmly through our binder of evidence. Tabs color-coded, dates, receipts, voice logs, copies of the refinance, the forged signature, the hotel receipts, the bank transactions, the notarization complaint, the trust documents with my name missing. His lawyer walked in first, then him. He looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, just less certain. His hair was a little thinner, his tie a little crooked. He didn't look at me. He looked at the floor, then the clerk, then the table. Anywhere but me. We didn't speak. I didn't need to. We weren't there for closure. We were there for truth. When the judge called our case, I stood without shaking. He sat with a sigh, like it was all exhausting to him, like this whole thing was unnecessary. His lawyer did most of the talking, claimed misunderstanding, claimed paperwork confusion, claimed I had agreed in principle to the changes in ownership, and that I was now emotional and reactive because of a deteriorating relationship. My lawyer waited, then opened the binder, one page at a time. My name removed from the trust without signature. Refinance forms signed and notarized while I was out of state. Audio logs, him asking me to sign just to keep things simple. A notarized statement from the woman who realized afterward she'd witnessed a signature that didn't match my ID. The forensic analyst's early report showing documents modified digitally before printing. And then the hotel invoice. 2 names, 1 a suite, Same weekend he was working. The judge looked at him, not angrily, just directly. "Mr. Henley, are you prepared to respond to these filings?" He leaned forward, spoke low, carefully. None of this was meant to be malicious. We were going through a difficult time. I thought I was doing what was best. The judge tilted her head slightly. Best for whom? He didn't answer. When I took the stand, I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I read from my notes. The pattern of financial decisions, the isolation, the control masked as caretaking, the slow removal of my name, my presence, my access. I was still living in the house, I said quietly, but legally, I was being erased. The courtroom was still. No gasps, no interruptions, just the weight of the words falling into place. He didn't speak during my testimony. He didn't look at me. When we adjourned for lunch, I walked past him slowly. He started to say something, my name maybe. I didn't stop. Outside, Diane was waiting. So was my sister. We sat on the courthouse steps, paper cups of coffee in our hands, the winter air cutting through our coats. "You did it," Diane said. "Not yet," I reply. But I felt it, the shift, the scales tipping, not because I had destroyed him, but because I had refused to disappear. Back inside, the judge ordered a hold on all property transfers, all account activity, a third-party review. No asset movement until resolution, she said. His lawyer tried to object. Denied. The next hearing was set for 6 weeks later. When we stood to leave, he finally looked at me. His mouth opened, but I beat him to it. "Don't," I said, soft and sharp. He blinked, and I walked away. Out of the courtroom, out of the performance, out of the shadow he had built around me. Back home, I opened the window. Let the cold in. Let the silence wrap around me. This was what it felt like to tell the truth without begging to be believed. This was what it felt like to survive without having to scream. And for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of the sound of my own life. I didn't move out right away. The court ordered him to, which was funny in a way, how everything he tried to quietly take became the very thing he had to hand back, piece by piece, paper by paper. He left on a Tuesday, didn't slam anything, just packed 2 bags and some boxes, barely looked me in the eye. I watched from the upstairs window. When the car backed out of the driveway, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel anything, just space. That night, I didn't celebrate. I made toast, sat on the floor of the empty guest room, left the lights off. I could finally hear the creak of the house again, the soft moan in the hallway when the wind picked up, the faint tick of the thermostat turning over. It felt like breathing air I'd forgotten existed. I didn't blast music, I didn't dance. I just listened to the quiet, and it didn't hurt. I didn't go back to who I was. She was gone, the woman who would have spent days crying in bed, begging for signs, rereading old emails looking for proof that love had been real. I didn't need proof anymore. I had presence. I started cleaning, not obsessively, gently, room by room, not because he touched it, because I needed to know where everything was again. I boxed the wedding china, gave it to my sister. I burned the journals from the last 2 years, not in anger, in release. Some memories don't need to be reread. They just need to be set free. I changed the locks. I changed the sheets. I changed the direction of the bed. It no longer faced the door. It faced the window. I slept alone. I slept well. A month passed, then another. I started going to the same cafe every morning. Small, quiet, with mismatched mugs and a woman behind the counter who always hums when she poured coffee. I didn't talk to many people, but I didn't feel lonely. One afternoon, I walked by a bookstore that had a handwritten sign in the window. Help wanted, part-time, quiet hands, no rush. I stepped inside, asked for an application, didn't oversell myself, didn't explain why I hadn't worked in years. Just said, I like books. I'm good at silence. The owner smiled. That's exactly what we need. I shelved paperbacks, stacked journals, learned the regulars, the man who always asked for mystery recommendations, the teenager who whispered poetry into her phone. I liked the rhythm, the dust, the repetition. At home, I planted herbs in little pots by the kitchen window. Basil, mint, thyme. They started to grow. I started to grow. Sometimes Diane would visit. She'd bring wine, sit on the floor with me. Once she asked, "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't found the papers?" I didn't answer right away. Then I said, I would have disappeared quietly. Not all at once, just piece by piece. She nodded. We didn't talk about him after that. The house felt bigger now, not because he was gone, because I wasn't shrinking anymore. I started writing again, not about him, not about grief, just little things. A woman in a bookstore, a garden with a gate that never opened, a girl who grows wildflowers in her chest instead of anger. Spring came. The elm tree in the front yard bloomed. For the first time in years, I noticed it, really noticed. The way the light moved through the branches, the hum of bees in the morning. I planted daffodils, then lavender, then roses, even though they scared me. One day, a neighbor I'd never met waved at me while walking her dog. She said, "You look well." And I believed her, because I was. The court case wasn't over. There were hearings, filings, back and forths. But it didn't rattle me. It didn't take anything from me that I hadn't already taken back. One morning, my lawyer called to say the settlement was close. He'd backed down. He was offering terms. She read the list. I nodded after each item, not because it was enough, because I was already done needing anything from him. She said, "You don't sound relieved." I said, "Relief was 3 months ago. This is just cleanup." On a Sunday afternoon, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea and a book I'd read a dozen times, and I realized I wasn't waiting for anything. Not closure, not justice, not even peace. I already had it. Quiet, whole, undeniably mine. I didn't write a letter to him. He didn't deserve one. But I wrote one to myself. I didn't start with "Dear," just my name, like a reminder that I still had one. I wrote slowly, pen to page, each word heavy in my hand, not because it was hard, but because it was true. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't closure. This was reclamation. There are things people will never understand unless they've lived it. The way betrayal doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers in the shape of kindness. The way control doesn't always look like fists. Sometimes it sounds like, "I'll take care of that." The way erasure doesn't feel like being pushed. It feels like being quietly moved aside. You start to vanish without even realizing you're fading, until you stop and decide to stay visible. On my last court date, I didn't bring anyone with me. I wore the same navy dress, simple flats, no makeup. I walked in alone, and I walked out whole. The case settled. No trial. He signed. He tried to speak to me once more in the hallway after everything was over. "Take care," he said. I looked at him finally, fully, and for the first time, I didn't see a future or a memory or a man I had to understand. I just saw a person who used to live in my house. "You too," I said. Then I turned and left. A few weeks later, I recorded a voice memo. Not for him, not for anyone else, just for me. I spoke plainly. I am not bitter. I am not broken. I am not his version of me. I paused, then said the line I didn't even realize I'd been carrying this whole time. I am not what he left. I am what survived. I played it back once, saved it, then started a new recording, the first entry of a new project. My voice steady, telling stories, telling truth, not for approval, not for apology, just because I can. I open the windows more now. I play music on Sundays. I forget to check the time and don't feel guilty. I say no more often. I laugh louder. I sleep in the middle of the bed. I grow things. I wake up and remember that no one owns my peace but me. And for the first time in years, I don't wake up afraid of losing anything, because I know now I am the thing worth keeping. Always was, always will be.